Arthur's Tricky Travels, written and told by Kiefer Adams. Thomas could never understand why Arthur, the large red tank engine, could enjoy the smell of fish. Arthur was in charge of the line that ran to the Normanby fishing village. Every day he would be up at the crack of dawn preparing the trucks filled with fish, freshly caught from the fishermen. Arthur loved his job, and ever since his early days on Sodor, he would never trade his work for anything else. "I think it's a rather smelly and silly job," Thomas would often say when Arthur brought his trucks to the docks. "I don't mind it at all," Arthur would reply. "It makes me feel really useful in my own way." Ever since he had been given the Normanby line by the Fat Controller, Arthur had never dreamed of trading it for any other work at all. One evening, Arthur was being cleaned at the washdown near Knapford Sheds. Salty was just telling him about the day's work at the docks. At that moment, the Fat Controller arrived on board Murdoch. "Ah, Arthur," he boomed, "I thought I'd find you here. I have an important job for you in the morning." "Of course, sir. What can I do for you?" asked Arthur politely. "Henry was supposed to collect a huge load of girders tomorrow from the smelters," said the Fat Controller, "but he's been called away. Could I rely on you to take the special instead?" Yes, sir," said Arthur, sounding a little nervous. "Wonderful," said the Fat Controller. "Thank you, Arthur. I knew I could rely on you." He turned and went to see the other engines in the shed. "But what about my fishing work?" said Arthur. "I can't leave that behind." "Dinna worry about the fishing village," said Murdoch. "I'll look after it for you. Apart from the seagulls, it'll be nice to look out to the sea." Arthur was still worried, though. This was the first time since he had been on the Normanby branch that he was going to be away from it, and that made him feel rather anxious. Arthur woke up as early as he could the next day and headed off to the smelters. He wanted to be back at the fishing village in good time, as he loved seeing the sun rise over the sea. All was going well until Arthur reached the main line. All of a sudden, his driver applied the brakes. There ahead was a cartload of hay with a wheel missing. "Oh, bother," Arthur groaned. "We were doing so well too." Just as Arthur thought he had a long wait ahead of him, a whistle sounded up ahead. It was Trevor the traction engine with Jem Cole, who was holding a spare wooden wheel under his arm. "Hello, Arthur," called Trevor. "Sorry about that. One of the cart's wheels broke off as we crossed the tracks. I had to go back to the orchard to get a spare one." "That's all right," said Arthur gloomily. "Take your time." Within moments, Jem had fixed the new wheel onto the cart. Trevor was hitched up and the traction engine pulled the cart away. "Thank you, Trevor," called Arthur, and he carried on his way, hoping to get to the smelters quicker than before. Just when Arthur thought all was going well, he found himself being slowed down again. "What's the matter now?" he groaned. It didn't take long for him to realise. Right in front of him was a huge oak tree which had blown over. Harvey, the crane engine, was already there picking up the branches one by one. "Oh, this'll take forever," Arthur groaned. "Why, you're in some sort of hurry?" asked Harvey. Arthur told him about his job and the fact he didn't want to leave the fishing village. "I know the feeling," sympathised Harvey. "Before I came to Sodor, I used to live up at the waterworks. I didn't feel like leaving there, to be honest. But now I can consider this a much better place to be, and I enjoy my job more than ever." Before long, Harvey had cleared the tree off the line. "Thank you, Harvey," said Arthur hastily, and he darted off down the line as fast as he could. "Be careful," called Harvey, but Arthur was too far away to hear. Now, Arthur was more determined to get to the smelters and be back at the fishing village. He had missed his chance of the perfect sunrise now. He just wanted to get back and see the sparkling water and the boats gliding across the sea. He was too busy thinking about the scenery when suddenly, "Whoa, Arthur!" shouted his driver and applied the brakes once again. "Hooah!" Arthur wailed. Before long, he came to a complete stop. Right in front of him, and just a few inches from his buffers, was a large slab of rock. Arthur looked frantically around, but couldn't see anyone to help. "Oh, well, that's it then," he sighed miserably. "We're never going to get back to the fishing village now." "Never say never, Arthur," said his driver. "We passed a telephone box not too far back. We'll call for help." The driver and fireman stepped down from Arthur's cab and went to the telephone. Arthur sat miserably, looking at the large slab of rock, wondering who would be strong enough to move it when help did come. A few minutes later, Arthur's crew came back with smiles on their faces. "Help is coming," they said, "but you'll be surprised who they've sent out." Arthur started to guess who would come to the rescue. Terence wouldn't be able to move such a boulder. And even the strongest engines like Gordon or Murdoch wouldn't be able to pull the rock clear off the line. Just as Arthur was wondering who had been sent, there was a loud buzzing sound from above. "Hello, chap!" Arthur looked up, and there was Harold the helicopter. "Heard you've got some rocky business," Harold called. His pilot threw down some chains, which Arthur's crew fastened around the rock. Arthur stared in bewilderment as Harold lifted the piece of rock off the line and gently down out of harm's way. "Thank you, Harold," gasped Arthur. "Good to be of service," Harold replied, and he buzzed away. Arthur soon reached the smelters without any more mishap. He managed to deliver the girders in good time and was even more delighted when he was allowed to head back to the fishing village. Not only did Arthur hope that Murdoch had kept his word about looking after the village, but he was looking forward to the tranquility of the many fishing boats, the smell of fish, and the sparkling waters of the one place he called home, the Normanby branch line.